Let me take you back to a time in the 90s when VHS, otherwise known as movies on a brick for the younger audience that hasn't even seen a VHS, was the dominant form of media on the market. There was something called tape trading, which was the process of copying a movie to another VHS tape and then handing it to your friends in exchange for something else. Essentially, it was like trading Pokemon cards, but for real nerds and illegal. That was how I got to experience Halloween for the first time, on like a third or fourth generation copy of it that was so degraded that it made the movie look like you're watching it through a wall of water. And Halloween is already a dark as hell movie, so you can imagine my anguish. And I gotta be honest, it bored the fuck out of me. But give me a break. I was like 10 at the time, and most of the movies I was watching were crazy, gory B movies. So when Halloween came out, I was like, God, nothing's happening. Obviously, as I got older and became more of a movie aficionado, my stance on Halloween changed dramatically. The movie opens with a long take of Michael Myers as a child, creepily wandering through his house before donning a weird clown mask and a butcher knife. I love the added eye hole effect. And then goes about murdering his sister. It quickly establishes the grounded feel that the rest of the movie will have. Michael, at this point anyway, wasn't any kind of supernatural force, he was just a kid. It makes you think, oh shit, this could really happen. 20 years later, Michael returns to his hometown to kill again, and that's the plot in a nutshell. Halloween did something that not a whole lot of horror movies were doing in the 70s. It made its primary focus horror, not gore. For a series that would go on to have some really gory deaths and a ton of blood, the original has barely any to speak of. Probably the most gruesome death in the movie has no blood in it at all, when Michael impales Bob to the wall with a butcher knife. Speaking of which, Michael must have been doing some serious heavy lifting because he's able to lift that guy up with one hand and stab a knife through him into the wall, impaling him, and just, man, I want to know what he's been lifting. I want those gains. The reason for the lack of gore was mostly budget. Halloween was made for around $300,000 with a crew of people that mainly just wanted to bring the project to life. I mean, the guy that played Michael was only paid $25 a day, and Jamie Lee Curtis was paid $8,000 for the entire shoot, which is nuts considering how famous she is now. But you gotta remember, Halloween was her first film debut. Hell, it was even because of a lack of budget that Michael even got the now iconic mask that he wears. All it was a slightly modified William Shatner mask that the crew picked up at a costume shop for a whopping $1.98. One of the most iconic horror masks of all time was bought for less than $2. Good thing it was modified. Could you imagine kids scared shitless that William Shatner was going to come wandering out of their closet in the middle of the night? In exchange for a lack of gore, Halloween does an incredible job of building tension and fear through atmosphere and certain lingering shots. I mean, the shot of the patients wandering aimlessly through the field, illuminated only by the headlights of the car when Dr. Loomis drives up to the asylum. I love that. That's a great shot. Plus the lingering shots of Michael just kind of silently watching from different angles, just barely visible behind a car or whatever. It's eerie as hell. Clearly heavily influenced by Hitchcock. Halloween bored the shit out of me as a kid, but now that I'm not as much of an idiot, I'd say Halloween falls within my favorite horror movies of all time. It does a lot of stuff right. Solid scares, great atmosphere, and great performances, especially from Jamie Lee and Donald Pleasence. Do yourself a favor and see this original masterpiece before you go see the new movie this month. You will not be disappointed. Halloween was a masterpiece of suspense, tension, and true terror. It may have ended on a cliffhanger, but that just added to the sense of dread that permeated the entire movie. So what could have possibly compelled John Carpenter and crew to work on a second Halloween movie? Big ol' stacks of fat cheese, my dude. So even though Halloween 2 was filmed and released 3 years after the original, it does take place literally immediately after the first one. It's about as straightforward a continuation as you can possibly get. Laurie is taken to a hospital while Dr. Loomis continues to run around trying to find Michael. The tone of suspense that made the original so great is immediately gone here. Halloween 2 came out in 1981, which was just a year after Friday the 13th. Plus, at this point, a ton of other far bloodier slasher flicks had also come out, so John Carpenter thought that in order to make this movie successful, they had to step up the gore and kills. As a result, it's very apparent from the get-go that this movie wasn't made with the same intentions as the original. It just feels cheaper and campier now. Even the Halloween theme song in this movie sounds cheaper. Speaking of gore, there isn't a whole hell of a lot, really. Probably the most graphic kill is when Michael cranks the heat up in a hot tub and scalds a nurse's face off. But that didn't get me. That shit didn't get me at all. You know what really grossed me out? That kid with the fucking razor blade stuck in his mouth. Sweet Jesus, that made my toes curl. Man, I hate stuff like that. Not only that, but it's pointless as shit. They aren't returning characters. They don't die. They don't come back for like a plot point later. Nothing. So what was the point? Jamie Lee Curtis is obviously back as Laurie, but to be honest, she's barely in the movie at all. I think her entire time on screen equals up to like 20 minutes or something close to that. And is it just me, Or did Donald Pleasance seem like he was really phoning it in this time? I don't know, his delivery and acting in this one just seems so forced that it's almost cartoony. He wasn't like that in the first one. But don't worry, plenty of other no-name characters get plenty of screen time, including a young Lance Guest who would later go on to star in the magnum opus that is Jaws the Revenge. You're really reaching for the stars there, aren't you, Lance? Now, it may sound like I'm doing nothing but shitting on this movie. I'm not. There are some moments in this movie that I genuinely really liked. There's a lot of shots of Michael in this movie that I loved, like when the camera's following behind him while he wanders down Main Street in the middle of public, or the scene where Michael just walks through a glass door like he doesn't give two fucks at all. It really establishes his purpose and makes him seem more like the unstoppable killing machine he really is. But one scene that I love, one that may actually be in my top 5 moments in the entire series, is this one. Not because it's good, but because it's one of the dumbest things I've ever seen, and it had me laughing so hard I almost shit myself.
Stop! Stop!
They just blew up a fucking kid in the middle of a suburban neighborhood, and no one gave a fuck. I love it. Halloween 2 was meant to be the final appearance of Michael Myers, so much so that they not only blew Michael the fuck up, but also killed off Dr. Loomis as well. They are both clearly deader than shit, but you know how that goes. Not even a goddamn explosion can keep a money mule down. Halloween 2 ended with a finale that I and most people would think was pretty definitive. They blew Michael up. How much deader could you possibly get? So I can imagine 1980s audiences' combinations of bewilderment and disappointment when Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, came out. Halloween 3 is the literal definition of a black sheep. It's the only entry in the Halloween franchise that doesn't feature Michael Myers and has no plot connections whatsoever with the previous 2 movies. When I was a kid, I always saw it on the movie shelf and thought it was weird that it was the only one with a cover that didn't have Michael on it. And this was a time when I was a pretty big fan of Halloween, so I could have only imagined how crushed my dumb little soul would have been to have watched a Halloween movie with no Michael Myers. So, what the fuck is Halloween 3 about if not a masked killer? Well, strap on your seatbelts, boys and girls, because this shit's about to get crazy. Basically, a manufacturing company called Silver Shamrock releases 3 of the hottest masks on the market, and kids are eating that shit up like crazy. Probably because their jingle makes me want to stick super glue in my ears so I never again have to hear this annoyingly catchy song, or anything ever again for that matter.
4 days to Halloween.
Turn that down.
4 days to Halloween.
This is Chalice.
Seriously, even after the movie was finished, I was still having dreams about this shit. But the masks harbor a dark secret. They somehow make kids die by making them barf up bugs and snakes or some shit. Honestly, I don't get it. They never really explain how it worked. But it's weird. Also, apparently the chips on the back of the masks shoot laser beams. Again, how that works is just beyond me. So, in summary, an evil Irish toy company uses witchcraft with the aid of robots to kill the world's children, cause they wanted to play the ultimate trick, I guess.
Whoa! Jeez! Mister, didn't mean to scare you. Just saw that bottle. Thought it looked pretty heavy. I ain't got no diseases. You mind if I have a drink?
It's a trap!
Ugh. Are you really gonna trust some homeless dude's lips on your bottle just because he said he didn't have a disease? That's like a killer walking up to you with a sickle and saying, "Don't worry, I'm not dangerous," before cutting your head off because you were stupid and let your guard down. I mean, seriously, that's the kind of way that you get some disease that turns your lips into an asshole. I don't really know if that's a real thing. I don't think it's a real thing. But either way, you get my point. Okay, look. I knew going into this movie that it had nothing to do with Halloween and that it didn't have Michael. So before you say, you just didn't like it because it didn't have Michael in it, I went into it with an open mind, judging it as a horror movie and not a slasher movie. And honestly, it's just pretty fucking boring. By the time the movie ended, I thought I'd been sitting there for at least 2 hours, but it was only an hour and a half. It's just so incredibly slow paced. It feels like the entire movie's plot could have been summed up in a shorter episode of The Twilight Zone or something. Don't you just love how they show the trailer for Halloween on the TV? If I was in the audience in 1982, I'd be fucking mad. While I like the idea John Carpenter was going for with this movie, I mean, the whole idea is to make a Halloween-themed horror anthology series, this just wasn't the way to do it. It needed a different title. Maybe just call it Halloween Season of the Witch, or just Season of the Witch. Sticking the 3 on it made audiences believe it was a continuation of Michael's story, and it pissed people off enough that the whole idea was dropped and Michael was brought right back again. My biggest question going into Halloween 4 was a pretty simple one, I think, and I think a rational question that any sane person would ask. How in the hell are they going to go about explaining how Michael and Dr. Loomis somehow managed to survive getting blown up at the end of Halloween 2? Their answer? Well, they just did. Oh. Well, Okay, fuck me, right? I'll come back to this point later. So, yeah, after the Halloween 3 anthology thing failed pretty horribly, it was pretty clear to the studio that if they wanted to keep the Halloween name relevant, they were just gonna have to bring back Michael. So they did, and they made damn sure to stick it right in the title just so there's no confusion. First off, I'd like to mention how much I love the first, 30 seconds of this movie. You all know I'm a dirty, filthy whore for good atmosphere, and this right here is damn good atmosphere. If the whole movie had somehow managed to keep this tone throughout, it'd probably be one of my favorite horror movies ever. I mean, it doesn't, but, you know. Return of Michael Myers takes place 10 years after the events of Halloween 2 and has Michael returning to the town of Haddonfield, of course he does, to kill the daughter of Laurie Strode, aka Michael's niece. So why does he so desperately want to kill his niece? Just where the hell is Laurie Strode anyway? Don't worry, none of these questions get answered. Danielle Harris made her first movie debut as Jamie here, and it's pretty clear why she would go on to become a scream queen and one of the more recognized names in horror movies today. Damn little girl had some acting chops on her belt.
Oh, come alive, Rachel. Please come alive. Don't be dead. You can't be dead. Come alive,
As for Michael, I gotta admit, as cool as it was seeing this shape wandering around doing his thing again, I am not a fan of the mask in this movie. It looks too clean. It's not creepy. It just looks goofy with its dumbass slick back hair. God, I hate it. Now, coming back around to how the ass Michael and Loomis survived Halloween 2. Apparently, in one of the original scripts that was written, the movie would have opened up with an explosion that showed Loomis getting blasted out of the way of the explosion. After that was scrapped, another idea was to show Loomis being taken away by an ambulance while he yelled for the firefighters to let Michael burn, but they extinguished him. But both of these ideas were scrapped because, I don't know, reasons. So we're just supposed to go with them magically not being dead instead, which makes way more fucking sense. Another question. Laurie shot Michael in both his eyes, so, I mean, how the fuck can he even see anything? How the fuck did he drive from wherever the hell he started all the way to Haddonfield again? How the fuck does he know what his niece looks like? That always bugged me. There aren't actually that many on-screen kills in Halloween 4. It's actually less gory than the last two Halloween movies were. I mean, when Michael smashes the shotgun through the chick's stomach and pins her to the fucking wall, no blood, but an obvious nod to the original knife kill from the first movie. The only gory kill I can remember is when Michael tears out the redneck's throat, Rambo style, which was awesome, by the way. They end the movie the same way the first movie began, which almost makes me wish this had been the Halloween 2 that was supposed to end Michael's story rather than the actual Halloween 2 we got. I mean, Halloween 4 is no masterpiece by any means, but I think if you watch the first one and this one back to back and ignored 2 and 3, it would piece together nicely. I'm not saying 2 and 3 are shitty, I'm just saying that 1 and 4 actually go together pretty well. But of course, there's a sequel, so shit on that idea. If you ever needed more evidence that Michael Myers had strapped on his water skis and soared over the shark like a motherfucker, look no further than 1989's Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers. This movie kicks off immediately after the last one. If you thought getting shot by a literal firing squad and falling backwards down a mine shaft was enough to kill Michael off, nah, bruh. He pulls a John Rambo and just crawls his way out the back. There are a few ways to make your movie's main villain look less intimidating than showing him bumbling around in a river like a toddler trying to learn how to swim. Michael ends up at the shack of some hobo in the woods, passes out, and then suddenly a year passes. So, I have questions. Did Michael get nursed back to health by the river hobo? Did Michael kill the river hobo and just camp out in the shack for a year? Wouldn't it have just made more sense to make this movie take place a few days later or something? Why a year? And if you thought that ending plotline established in Halloween 4 with Jamie donning Michael's clown outfit and attacking her stepmom, and just in general heavily insinuating that Jamie was now evil, was gonna go anywhere, you'd be wrong, bucko. Nah, rather than pursuing that plot thread, which probably could have been interesting, instead they go with the whole psychic connection bullshit between Michael and Jamie. Every time Michael is nearby or doing pretty much anything, Jamie can sense it, all thanks to a stupid symbol on his arm that won't be mentioned again until the next movie. kind of reminds me of another movie with revenge in the title that also dealt with a psychic link and was also the cinematic equivalent of Ball Sweat. Not to mention, where were all these psychic powers in the last movie? There's also some man in black who wanders around throughout the entire course of the movie, only to show up at the very end and shoot up a police station and then free Michael. Don't worry, you aren't getting any answers to this dumbass ending until 6 years from now. Oh good. There's so many moments in this movie that just had me questioning my sanity, such as this scene.
All clear. Nothing above, nothing below.
No, I didn't add that music. That's shit they chose. They chose to put that in their serious slasher movie. While we're on the topic of music, most of the music in this is just a rendition of the classic Halloween theme, par for the course. But there's one part in the laundry room where... Man, I don't know what happened. It's like the musical composer just started slapping his nuts on a piano or something and recorded whatever happened. It's just a garbled mess of sound. It's got no purpose and no structure at all. Back to me questioning my sanity. Why, when Michael steals a Camaro and picks up Tina, does he actually stop and let her get out to get a pack of smokes from a gas station? Michael's only purpose is to be a killing machine, but you're telling me he just so happened to be a good guy for half a second? Also, how is Jamie able to outrun a fucking Camaro in an open field? That kid must have been playing a lot of Sonic or some shit, because that's impressive. As dumber than shit as this movie is, it's not completely void of some good points. Danielle Harris and Donald Pleasance are once again damn good, especially Danielle. Even though for half the movie she's mute, she still nails every scene she's in. One moment in particular that I really liked was the moment where she called Michael uncle, and they have an almost intimate moment before shit goes back to hitting the fan. I also really liked some of the scenes where Michael was standing or moving around in the background, but the camera wasn't entirely focused on the background, so you have to really look closely or you'd end up missing it. I love stuff like that. I love when it's subtle and effective. But aside from those select few moments, the rest of Halloween 5 is just a boring mess. It takes forever for the movie to finally kick off, and even when it does, it's just bullshit because of this stupid witchcraft psychic cult subplot crap they decided to go with. It leaves you with more questions than answers and forces you to sit through Halloween 6, which in of itself is a bit of a sin. Dear sweet crispy Christ on a cracker, what the fuck happened with Halloween 6? But alas, I'm getting ahead of myself. For the sake of this review, I'd like to mention that this review focuses on the producer's cut of Halloween 6, mainly because A, Halloween 6 is already such an ass fest of a movie that I wanted this experience to be slightly better for myself than the last time I sat through this fucking thing, and B, I haven't seen the producer's cut before, and I've heard it's, well, debatably better anyway. Halloween 5 ended on a bullshit cliffhanger that apparently not even the people making that movie had any idea what they wanted to do with. So here we are, 6 years later, with the curse of Michael Myers. Yeah, the real curse is on me for having to sit through this fucking heap of diarrhea. So, Halloween 6 opens with Jamie. Yes, the same Jamie from the last two movies, but obviously not Danielle Harris, because she had the sense to realize that this was bullshit, giving birth to a baby and escaping some underground pagan cult ritual shit. Oh, and did I mention that Michael is the goddamn father? Incest is wincest. Keep it in the family, I guess. I mean, you could just tell without a shadow of a fucking doubt that this movie is going to be something. Not a good something, but it's something. We are also introduced to young Paul Rudd in his first movie role, because this movie was actually filmed before Clueless, playing Tommy. You know, that little kid from the first movie that Laurie was babysitting. Yeah, he's a really weird bastard, spending his time analyzing the stars and astrology and fucking magical ruins and shit, pinpointing when Michael Myers shows up. If it sounds retarded, that's because it totally is. I've heard some people say Paul's performance in this is good, but those people are obviously huffing glue. He sucks hard. He delivers every line like a robot.
To offer the blood sacrifices of its next of kin on the night of Samhain.
Halloween.
The sacrifice of one family meant sparing the lives of an entire tribe.
So, why are you so concerned about us if Michael's only out to kill his family?
In his mind, anyone living in his house is his family.
And I gotta say, considering how badass Michael Myers is supposed to be, it really kills any mystique the character ever had when you realize he's just being controlled by the dickhead from Liar Liar the whole time. Yes, that man in black told Michael to kill his family when he was a kid, and told him to kill everyone else he's ever killed since then, in every sequel ever. What in the actual ass? There's also a plot thread where the pagan cultist dudes are trying to cultivate a new Michael in the form of some little boy who has nothing to do with Michael whatsoever, besides the fact that he just so happens to live in the old Myers house. So, we're just going to ignore the fact that Jamie hid that baby when it was nighttime, and it's now morning time, and somehow it never made a single noise and no one heard it in this heavily public place. Sure, whatever, that's cool. I mean, at least Donald Pleasance is good. I mean, you can clearly tell he was getting too old for this shit, but God bless that sweet angel for actually trying. They even dedicated this movie to him, and that's just sad, dude. And hey, I mean, at the very least, at least Michael himself looks pretty cool, but like I said, the fact that he's just a pagan cult puppet that fucked his niece kind of kills any sort of cool factor he ever had. Oh, look at that. Michael sure is a good fella. He had the decency to do your laundry after he slaughter-foddered your wife. What a swell chap. The ending to the producer's cut is one of the dumbest, most anticlimactic and bullshit finales I've ever seen put to film in my entire life. Ever. Of all time. At least in the theatrical cut of the movie, you get a fight between Paul and Michael. It's a terrible fight, but at least it's there. In this version of the movie, Michael is stopped by... I can't believe we have to say this out loud. Michael is stopped by magical acorns. Holy shit! The producer's cut doesn't save it. Halloween 6 is still a travesty, considering the massive dick-waving contest everyone on set was having, from the director, to the producer, to the writer, to the studio. It's safe to say this movie was fucked right from Jump Street. I've actually heard people say they wanted to see this whole plotline continue in a sequel, but for the love of God, what is wrong with those people? I honestly can't tell which is the worst movie. This one or fucking Halloween Resurrection. Retconning Halloween 6 is one of the greatest gifts the human race has ever been given. Fuck this mess.
Play the movie. I want you to smile. Shut